Well, joining me in the studio throughout the programme, we've got Barbara Starr, a veteran Pentagon correspondent who now provides commentary and analysis on US national security and defence strategy. Also with us is our political panel for the evening, the Democrat strategist Yemisi Egbowole and the Republican strategist Leslie Shedd. Very good to have you all with us. Barbara, I'll come to you first if I can. We heard in Jeremy's report there about the increased Israeli activity now not just in Gaza, focused on Gaza City, but now on Qatar, a strong ally of America's. What does this do for the dynamics of a potential peace negotiation?
Well, President Trump had a proposal on the table for the release of the hostages. I don't think anybody expected Hamas to agree to it outright because it called for an immediate release of all living hostages and return of all remains. But nonetheless, it was on the table. And now the Israelis, stepping in with this strike, have basically made it not possible to really continue with the negotiations, at least at this point. So it becomes a very interesting question why Israel felt they had to do this. And as we've talked about, how they let or did not let the U.S. know about it. The statement from the White House had some very interesting wording. The White House was notified by the U.S. military, not by Israel. So either the U.S. military was notified on the side by the Israelis, or the U.S. military somehow through their intelligence, satellites and radars saw the Israeli weapons in the air. The Qataris say they were not aware of that these weapons were coming into their sovereign territory. And one last point I would make that just adds to the oddness of all of this. The building that they struck still has walls standing. So there's a lot of damage, people have been killed, but there's some walls still standing. So this is not, and it's a residential building, so this is not a massive airstrike. This was something else. And what intelligence the Israelis had still remains to be seen, and whether they really got the people they wanted.
Of course, Hamas saying that not everyone was killed.
And this goes to the question of the Israeli intelligence that they had in hand. If you're going to strike a building and killing non-combatants in a residential neighborhood, common sense dictates you would have had intelligence on it. You would have had eyes on the target, some Israeli assets on the ground, watching this building, knowing who was coming and going, knowing who was in the building. Or is it possible that the people they thought were in there left during the flight time of those missiles that were coming into Qatar? There's a lot that we just don't know that still remains to be seen.
Yeah, Leslie, I'd like to bring you in on this. I know you watch foreign policy keenly. Mr. Trump, if you read between the lines in his statement, doesn't seem happy with one of his closest allies.
I mean, he seems incredibly frustrated. I think he's rightfully frustrated. It appears that this was done, without any type of specific alert to us, alert to the Qataris. I have the same question that Barbara has. What made them take this escalatory step right now? And I emphasize right now because the peace negotiations were in process. They seemed to be progressing forward. It seemed like we were making some good strides here. So why did they feel the need to do this right now? I understand why the president is frustrated, and I agree with him when he said that while destroying Hamas is a worthy cause, that this does not advance U.S. goals and it does not advance Israel's goals.
Absolutely, and Yemisi, this really arguably has put the brakes on some of these peace negotiations. What's your interpretation?
Yeah, it makes peace negotiations almost impossible now. It's a kind of unexpected provocation. And looks, it's either somebody's lying or somebody's not in control, because the U.S. is saying that they gave a heads up to our friends in Doha, but they're saying over there that they didn't have a heads up. Either way, it looks like there's no clear communication line. This is really hard to kind of say that we are a stabilizing force in the world when we're caught in the middle of a little bit of he said, she said telephone game here. So I really think it's incumbent upon the president to get all folks at the table to talk through this.
Leslie, Mr. Trump proudly talks about that the wars he says he solved in his time in office, Russia, Ukraine and Israel, Gaza being the outliers. But to Yemisi's point, does this put America in a difficult position when it comes to, quote unquote, fixing this conflict?
So I think you could make the argument that this attack actually does create deterrence. It makes it clear to Hamas that Israel is not afraid to strike their leadership at any time, any place. And that could help bring Hamas to the negotiating table and actually be willing to accept a ceasefire. That being said, I truly believe this makes it much more difficult right now. I think that Qatar is a huge, important mediator in these negotiations. They are rightfully furious right now. I would not be surprised if they are going to rethink their role that they're playing. After all, they've been using their time and their political capital in order to try to get a peace and try to get Israeli hostages home. And they were rewarded with a missile strike inside of Doha. That is not a good message to send. So I worry the long-term damage this could have. And I also think, too, not just looking at the peace negotiations, but the impact that this could have on the day after plan in Gaza. Gulf nations are going to need to play a significant role in whatever ends up happening in Gaza long term. We need them there both for help with rebuilding and with creating stability and security in Gaza. And I think that this is going to make them much less likely or much less willing to help.
Is there a risk also? One of President Trump's proudest achievements in his first administration was the Abraham Accords, the normalization of relations in the region. Could this undo those?
I would hope not. I think that many countries in the region understand that having a better, more stable relationship with Israel is better for them. It's safer for the region. But I do think that Israel needs to pay more attention and be more cautious about the way that it makes these decisions and the long-term ripple effect that it could have on their security.
Yeah, Missy, we often hear the phrase international condemnation of Israel for its actions in Gaza. Now the same thing with its actions in Qatar. Is President Trump not being bold enough with telling his friend and ally Benjamin Netanyahu to stop?
Well, look, I saw the relationship when I worked for President Biden, and U.S. and Israel have a long-standing partnership. And so I think it is difficult for a lot of members of Congress and even the president to be highly critical of Israel. I don't know if we will see any real strong condemnation, long-lasting, any consequences moving forward.
Barbara, final thought from you on this matter. What happens next?
I think that it becomes, for the immediate period of time in the next several days, more unsettled as all the parties try to maneuver, see what leverage is still there, see who is saying what capabilities they have, and just what else Netanyahu is going to do. Clearly, he's going to continue with the campaign of bombing Gaza. I think there's no question about that. But where does he, if he didn't get the people that he wanted to kill in this raid, does he have another one planned? I think everyone will be watching for that.
Barbara, thank you very much for that. I want to move on to the other story that's dominating headlines in the United States, here at least. And that is that of the case of Jeffrey Epstein and the letter and drawing which has been released, which House Democrats say was written and drawn by President Trump and given to the convicted sex offender. Well, the BBC spoke earlier to the Democrat Senator Chris Coons about the release of this letter. Here's what he had to say.
It's long been known that President Trump was a close friend of Jeffrey Epstein. It does not surprise me at all that he sent him a birthday greeting with off-color suggestions and cartoons and so forth. And I think the best thing for us to do in the interests of both widespread public interest in this matter and the concerns of the victims is to listen to what they're asking for and make sure all these files get opened and the information gets released.
Well, we should stress that the White House has repeatedly and firmly denied that President Trump wrote or signed this letter in question. Yemisi, I'll come to you first. What do you make of this? Is this fake news?
No. Ranking Member Garcia has a long-standing history of integrity and working honestly across the aisle, as do most of the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee. Look, this isn't something that they would release if they didn't have full verification. I've spoken personally to members on the House Oversight Committee. They spoke about 1 week ago and expressed frustration with Republicans who said that they wanted public trust and transparency. When they released the documents, around 3,000, what Democrats found was that most of them was already information that was available publicly. What the Democrats did was release information that they knew for a fact was not available publicly to people. This is more than just about some creepy birthday note. Yes, we know they were friends. Yes, we know boys will be boys and they make jokes. All of that, that's fine. They can run deflection. What Democrats want to know is who was involved, who was silent, and who still has power. And Democrats have been very clear. If there are Democrats that were involved in one of the most high-profile child sex trafficking rings in modern history, those Democrats, as well as Republicans, will be brought to justice.
Leslie.
I think it's rich to say that Democrats care about this. They did not care anything about Jeffrey Epstein for years and years until suddenly they found that it might be politically advantageous to them. And now they're trying to jump all over it. It's very disingenuous. I don't think the American people are going to fall for it. Chris Coons said something actually that was very right. There is a long history that it's known that President Trump and Epstein knew each other. And the moment that President Trump found out what a terrible guy he was, he not only cut off all contact with him, but he banned him from his club and did not speak to him for more than 15 years before his death. The president has said he did not write this. He said that is not his signature. The White House has said they're willing to have it be examined to prove that it's not him. And I take him at his word.
But what would be in it for the Democrats to fake this? Because surely if it is fake, that would come out anyway.
I'm not saying that the Democrats faked it. I think that somebody else put this in the book at some point in time. It's hard for people to remember, but Donald Trump was a very famous person for decades before he became president. He was in Home Alone too. He's mentioned in TVs and movies and songs for decades. So I would not be surprised if somebody tried to fake some kind of a funny poem from him to put into a book for Jeffrey Epstein because they knew that the two of them knew each other. This is what the president has said. I take him at his word.
These accusations of his around his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein have dogged him for years. If this is resolved here and now, is that the end of it?
I mean, I think that it's hard to say, is that the end of it? Only because, you know, I think that it's hard for the victims, right? Anybody that is a victim of Jeffrey Epstein, that is never going to end for them. If you're talking about the accusations that are being made against President Trump, I would hope so. But my years of experience in politics have taught me that, you know, any old scandal will come back over and over and over again to haunt you. But I think it's been very clear and clearly documented. President was cut off all ties with him, had nothing to do with him. He has said that he did not write this. He's adamant about it. He said he's willing to have it analyzed to prove that it's not his signature. And, you know, I think that that speaks volumes.
Emily, what do you have to say to what Leslie said?
I don't know if we ever move past it. I honestly thought when he put pressure on Mike Johnson to cut the session early and go to August recess, that when we came back, they would move off of it. But there are some House Republicans that keep this churning as well. And so I think if he doesn't get everybody on the right to kind of tamp this down, it's never going to go away. I mean, first day of session back, Mike Johnson sits down for a roundtable with the victims. Then the victims hold a public press conference in front of the Capitol, and Republicans attended that as well. And so if the entire party isn't on message that the president would like to move forward from this, it'll keep coming up.
Okay, Missy, Barbara, Leslie, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.